Welcome back to our podcast. This is One Nation, One Justice. I'm Jim Carmichael. Thank you for joining me, and let's get into today's broadcast. Today's podcast is titled, Justice Should Not Depend on Geography. Before we can change laws, we must first change minds. Every American has heard the expression, justice is blind. It is a powerful idea. It means that justice should not care whether a person is rich or poor. It should not care about social position, political influence, family connections, or personal background. The facts should matter. The law should matter. And the same basic standards of justice should apply to every American. But there is another factor that can have an enormous influence on justice in America: geography. Where a crime is committed can dramatically affect what happens to the person who committed it. Two people can commit essentially the same crime under very similar circumstances and receive dramatically different consequences simply because those crimes occurred in different states or even in different counties. The investigation may be handled differently. The charges may be different. The sentencing ranges may be different. The opportunities for rehabilitation may be different, and the conditions under which those sentences are served may be completely different. So we need to ask a fundamental question. If we are one nation, why should justice change so dramatically when we cross a state line? Now, equal justice does not mean identical justice. Every case is different. Circumstances are different. Backgrounds are different. The facts surrounding an offense are different. And judges need reasonable discretion to consider those differences. But there is an important distinction between discretion and inconsistency. Discretion operates within boundaries. Inconsistency exists when those boundaries themselves are dramatically different. And when that happens, geography begins to determine justice. Consider sentencing. If two individuals commit essentially the same offense under similar circumstances, one should not face a few years in prison while another faces decades simply because the offenses occurred on opposite sides of a state line. That does not strengthen the respect for the law. It weakens it. Now consider what happens after sentencing. One person may enter a correctional system that provides education, vocational training, treatment, counseling, and meaningful opportunities for personal change. Another person serving a similar sentence may enter a system that provides little more than confinement. Eventually, both may return to society. And that brings us to a question that every American should care about. Who do we want coming home? Because hundreds of thousands of incarcerated men and women eventually return to our communities. They become our neighbors, they work in our businesses, they attend our churches, they live near our families. So the purpose of incarceration cannot simply be to ask how much punishment did this person receive. We must also ask, what kind of person are we returning to society? Did that individual receive an education? Did they learn a trade? Did they address addictions or destructive behavior? Did they learn responsibility? Did they develop the skills necessary to become a productive member of society? Or did they simply spend years learning how to survive inside a prison? That is not merely a question about prisoners. That is a question about public safety. And this is where One Nation, One Justice proposes something fundamentally different. America needs a nationally consistent framework for justice. That does not mean eliminating the states. It does not mean eliminating judges. It does not mean that every person convicted of the same offense must automatically receive the exact same sentence. And it does not mean becoming soft on crime. It means establishing national baseline standards. Standards for investigation, standards for evidence, standards for proportional sentencing, standards for conditions of confinement, standards for education and rehabilitation, and standards for preparing people to return to society when their sentences are complete. States can still administer justice. Courts can still consider individual circumstances. Judges can still exercise reasonable discretion. But the foundation should remain consistent, because constitutional rights do not disappear when we cross a state line. An American living in Oklahoma possesses the same fundamental constitutional protections as an American living in Texas, California, Florida, or New York. And if government has the authority to take away one of our most fundamental rights, our liberty, then the standards governing that decision should be worthy of tremendous scrutiny. Before liberty is taken away, we should know that the investigation was honest. We should know that evidence was handled properly. We should know that guilt was established fairly. We should know that the sentence is proportional to the offense. And when incarceration is necessary, we should know that the correctional system is doing more than simply counting the years until the person returns home. That is not weakness, that is responsible justice. There are dangerous individuals who must be separated from society. There are violent offenders from whom the public must be protected. And there may be individuals who can never safely return to society. Justice must recognize that reality. But recognizing that reality does not require us to abandon everyone else. Protecting society and restoring people who can be restored are not opposing ideas. In fact, successful restoration is one of the most effective ways of protecting society. A person who leaves prison prepared to live responsibly is less dangerous than someone who leaves prison angry, uneducated, unskilled, and unprepared. That should matter to every one of us. So this is not an argument for lighter justice, and it's not an argument for harsher justice. It's an argument for consistent justice. Justice that is measurable, justice that is proportional, and justice that is transparent. And justice that Americans can trust. Because a justice system ultimately depends upon the confidence of the people it serves. When similar actions produce wildly different consequences based largely upon location, that confidence begins to disappear. And when confidence in justice disappears, the legitimacy of the entire system suffers. We can do better. We can hold people accountable. We can protect society. We can incarcerate those who truly need to be incarcerated. We can restore those who can be restored. And we can establish reasonable national standards so that the basic principles of American justice do not change simply because someone crossed an invisible line on a map. We are the United States of America, 50 states, our nation, one nation. And when something as fundamental as a person's liberty is at stake, justice should not depend upon geography. Justice should depend upon law. This is one nation, one justice. And remember, before we can change laws, we must first change minds. Thank you for your time.